Hi there, I'm Becky and I'm an occupational psychologist. Over the years, a lot of people have asked me to help them understand what the deal is with taking personality questionnaires. With that in mind, I decided to put together everything I've learned from working in the field of psychometric testing into a video for the wider audience here on YouTube. And that means you, my friend. If you happen to watch the first two videos on my channel, you'll know that I was professionally trained to interpret the OPQ, but my personal preference is to talk about the MBTI. This is simply because I'm most passionate about understanding human nature, and I believe the MBTI provides a powerful conceptual framework for understanding human nature and our potential for growth. In this video, I'm going to talk about three things: the purpose of the MBTI, what the MBTI isn't, and how to use the MBTI properly. Rather than go into the specific details of the MBTI, my aim for this video is to provide you with a healthy framework to think about personality questionnaires in general. That means advising you on what you're getting yourself into by addressing the common problems and misunderstandings shared by people that have taken it in the past. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's jump in. Here are 3 points I would share with a friend if I felt that they would benefit from taking the MBTI and seemed curious enough to attempt it. The first point is to consider taking the MBTI if you are going through a period of change. When we go through changes in life, we usually search for ways to get some perspective. We may first look to examine our external circumstances and choices, but may realize that it only gets us so far. Going deeper, we may turn inwards and explore our own character. This leads nicely to the second point, which is that the MBTI is a great tool for character development, through which you'll be able to see yourself as an actor on the world stage. Indeed, there are numerous methods of self-discovery, such as these Know Yourself cards, which I picked up from the School of Life. And all inquiry is good inquiry. But what makes the MBTI an especially powerful tool is that it's data-driven, which basically means you're able to benchmark core aspects of your personality to other types of actors. Building on to the third point, which is that the MBTI helps you to raise your self-awareness. By understanding how your character navigates through the world, you'll start to uncover some subconscious choices that you have made that have led you to the circumstances you find yourself in right now. By simply noticing the link, you will start to feel more conscious and empowered to navigate the changes you are going through, as if you've unlocked additional choices you weren't previously aware of. And drawing this all together, I like to conceptualize the MBTI as aiding with 3 levels of understanding. Level 1 is to know thyself, and what this means is that once you come to understand yourself better through the MBTI, you will find that you start to accept yourself for who you are, which is the core foundation required for personal growth. This unlocks level 2, which is to know thy friend, as once you understand your own character profile, you can then start to understand others' character profiles, and this will help you to build better relationships through greater tolerance and empathy. And this brings us to level 3, which is to know humanity, as after you've gained years of experience in practicing this, you'll be able to notice patterns in human behavior. In summary, the ideal purpose for taking the MBTI is if you are going through change for life, you're interested in character development, and you'd like to raise self-awareness first for yourself and then for humanity. In this section, I address what I think is the number one misconception surrounding the MBTI, and I do this by explaining what the MBTI is often mistaken for being. The biggest trap we fall into is believing the MBTI is a personality horoscope which can forecast the future. However, the MBTI is a scientific instrument that measures limited aspects of our personality. It is one of hundreds of personality questionnaires. The MBTI only measures 4 dimensions of personality. It can, to a certain extent, predict how we are likely to interact with our environment, how we are likely to direct our mental energy, how we are likely to make decisions with regards to our emotions, and how we are likely to make decisions with regards to work. Back in the day, I used to work for the largest employer of occupational psychologists in the world, and they developed a personality questionnaire that measures 8 times the number of personality traits, and this is seen as the gold standard of psychometric testing. The MBTI is far off from that level of scientific rigor. However, despite its scientific limitations, there's clearly something to be gained from the MBTI. It wouldn't hold its status as the oldest personality questionnaire in the world if it didn't deliver valuable insights into fundamental aspects of our personality. This has been a long contested topic amongst academics who have struggled to prove its capabilities. Over time, it was eventually concluded that the MBTI is not robust enough to assist with hiring decisions. Unlike the OPQ, the MBTI is basically banned from recruitment. Indeed, big corporate mistakes have been made over the past 60 years using the MBTI this way. And to prevent this from happening, if a cowboy recruiter asks you to complete the MBTI as part of the hiring process, say no. This doesn't predict job performance and it's unethical. However, the MBTI is an individual self-awareness discovery exercise, and it may be used in tangential work contexts such as career counseling, leadership development, and team building, just not hiring. The key point here is that it is being used for employee development, and it is not being used to decide if someone should get a job. So of course, it is a highly enjoyable activity for teams within a safe environment. If you are given the opportunity to take the MBTI at work, count yourself as lucky, especially if you are a leader. If HR are investing in budgets to develop their people, that's where the transformation happens. In the past decade, there has been a resurgence of scientific interest in the MBTI due to the development of a new personality questionnaire called the Myers-Briggs Type Explorer. The authors clearly state on the website that the NTE is modeled off the Big Five, which is a widely accepted, evidence-backed model of personality. By making the NTE available online for free in a wide range of languages, the company has been able to quickly analyze 300 million sets of data in order to determine its validity and reliability as a scientific instrument. Convincing scientific progress has been made with the NTE, demonstrating strong test-retest reliability. This is very important in the world of personality assessments, as research has consistently shown that personality is stable over time. Therefore, we shouldn't expect somebody's MBTI results to change after just 6 months of taking it. This has been a slight problem for previous versions of personality assessments attempting to measure the MBTI. As a historical side point, the MBTI is a theoretical model developed by a famous psychiatrist called Carl Jung, and numerous scientific attempts have been made to validate one man's experience as a practicing psychiatrist. In summary, the MBTI is not a personality horoscope, and if I was to suggest a replacement phrase, I would describe it as a man-made oracle. Psychologists take issue with the fact that some people's results seem to fluctuate when they retake the test after a short period of time, when research has consistently shown that personality is stable over time. The MBTI does not meet the cut to be used in recruitment contexts. Instead, it provides its value within developmental contexts. And in the next section, if you decide to take the test, I will explain to you how you can navigate the test-retest reliability issue. But before you jump there, I must now share with you the most important point of this section, so listen carefully. The biggest trap of falling into believing that the MBTI is some kind of horoscope is that there is a real risk of labeling and stereotyping people. I'll put this simply, labeling is never acceptable, as this leads to people feeling hurt or judged. Obviously, it's not possible to talk about the MBTI without revealing your type, so there's always going to be some risk here, and it works both ways. The only way to avoid this from happening in conversation is to acknowledge with each other that the MBTI is never going to predict someone's future, as there are far too many external factors as well as other personality characteristics and abilities at play in one's life. Hopefully by this point I've answered the why and what of the MBTI. Should you wish to venture into the world of personality assessment and specifically take the MBTI, here are 5 steps that I would recommend to ensure that you had a good experience and made the most of the information presented to you. Before you start, there are 2 rules to the game. First, I'd like you to acknowledge that self-awareness is a lifelong commitment. We do not always have the time or the mental capacity to look inwards, especially in this fast-paced world. Speaking of time, your initial dive into MBTI will be taking the test and generating the free report, and this will take about an hour. So please schedule this into your diary like you would a gym workout. Mental gymnastics feels like high-intensity training. Second, if you already know that you want to deep dive into this and you go down the option of generating the 200-page plus premium report, please note the report is like a book. Given the amount of intense information there is to absorb, please don't expect this to make sense immediately. In a nutshell, you need a lot of time to mull over it, but also you need to have sufficient experiences in life to relate to the findings as well. I can guarantee that you will want to mull over your experiences with your friends and family, so please expect this report to be something that you come back to time and time again. So here are the 5 steps. Step 1. Take the nearest type explorer at 16personalities.com. There are numerous personality questionnaires that assess the MBTI types, and the NTE was developed around 2013 and is based on the latest scientific thinking. Furthermore, the website offers the best experience of the test and produces the most information. If you jump to this section from the timestamps, I explain the NTE in the what section of this video. Step 2. Once you finish the 15-minute questionnaire, you'll be given your MBTI type, which is a 4-letter combination, and you'll also be presented with a written report. However, please don't read the written report first. I'd like you to navigate to the section which shows you the 4 scales for your letters. Specifically, what I'd like you to pay attention to is whether or not any of your scores fell close to the middle. If this applies to you, I'd like you to take a note of the possible alternative 4-letter combinations that you might be for the future. For example, I fall close to the middle on one scale. I am an ENFP, but my energy trait scale suggests that I might be an ESFP. Hopefully by asking you to consider this first, you'll understand that the accuracy of the written report is very much determined by how close your scores are to either end of each of the 4 scales. Step 3. I'd like you to read the descriptions for each of the 4 scales, paying special attention to the scale where your score falls close to the middle. With this information in mind, you'll now be best placed to read your written report, which will probably take about half an hour or so. I recommend you open up a Google Doc alongside your report and take a note of the things that you find striking. These might be agreeable or disagreeable. Copy and paste the descriptions into the document and make a note of why you find it interesting. You might want to separate your findings into the sections which are laid out in the report. Personal growth, romantic relationships, friendships, parenthood, academic paths, and career and professional growth. Step 4. Highlight the striking findings in the report that you think could benefit from additional perspectives outside of your own. Kindly inform your closest friends and family that you are going through a personal development exercise and you would invite them to share their thoughts on a series of statements about you. What you may find is that they will share additional examples to your own that may reinforce or go against the findings. At this point, you might be thinking, if your scores didn't fall closely to either side of each scale, what's the point of going through a semi-reliable report? That's what I initially thought as well. However, what I found was that large parts of the report were agreeable and were valuable insights in themselves. Crucially, this leads to step 5, which is to schedule a time in your calendar to redo the assessment. What you are looking for is to see if your result changes. I would recommend minimum 6 months or 12 months. As it so happens, I ended up taking the assessment twice within 3 years, and my results did not change. I did not change from an ENFP to an ESFP. By this point, because I had a clearer understanding of my personality and I was able to validate them against my experiences, a lot of things started to make sense. Through gathering all this data, I came to realize that the MBTI was not a waste of time. In fact, it was the exact opposite. The way that I see scoring in the middle of one of the scales is as if it is a unique superpower. I've come to understand the way that I use the mind trait is that I love to pay attention to my surroundings using observation, whilst equally paying attention to the deeper meanings using intuition. I also recognize, like any superpower, that there is a dark side and it needs to be managed well. My mind trait has the ability to confuse me by overloading me with information. If you think about it, trying to pay attention to the deeper meaning of things by connecting the dots between the past, present, and future, whilst simultaneously wanting to take as much sensory information from the physical environment, can be mentally taxing. This really helped me understand why I experience burnout after intense social situations, despite the fact that I have a strong preference for being extroverted, meaning I get my energy from social interaction. So if in 6, 12 or 18 months time your MBTI changes, don't make a big deal of it. You'll just have more information to process and you'll be able to relay that with some of your experiences. There are several reasons why your MBTI result might have changed. The first is that the MBTI is a self-reporting tool, which means that the results are affected by how honest you were in completing the questionnaire. For example, your results might be affected by what mood you were in when you took your assessment, or perhaps you've gone through some life changes which reaffirmed what your preferences really are. Life experiences like changing jobs, changing relationships, or traveling do change you. And this is the reason why taking the MBTI at 30 is much more valuable than taking it at 20. So those are the 5 steps. Now let's talk about the power up step, which is something that I would like you to do in parallel to steps 1 to 5 if you want to supercharge your analysis. The power up step is to invite your closest friends, family, or lovers to participate in taking their MBTI with you. This turns into a very fun social experiment. I asked 3 people to take their MBTI alongside myself. This was 2 very close friends and a former long-term partner. The results were astonishing. My 2 friends were also both ENFPs like myself, and my partner was the exact opposite 4 letters. So he was an ISTJ. There's clearly some science behind the whole idea of opposites attract. I can't begin to explain how revelatory this was in relation to all the experiences that I had had with them in the past decade. It was really fun, but it was mostly about what we learned about ourselves and a private activity. I would like to remind you that the MBTI is a man-made oracle. The MBTI is not an ability test. So to be clear, my 2 ENFP friends of mine have completely different lifestyles and careers. Not only that, our hobbies are starkly different. In summary, the MBTI is a partial picture of our overall identity, but it has completely transformed the way that I look at myself, other people, and humanity. And I truly hope that it can do the same for you, but only when you are ready to change for the better. Thank you for watching this video if you got this far. I really appreciate that you made it to the end. Above all, I hope you found this information valuable. I had fun making it, but please bear in mind that this is my personal opinion and take it with a pinch of salt and form your own. If you'd like to watch more of my videos, I created a video detailing the MBTI scales, which I'll link in the description below. If you have any questions at all, please drop it in the comments. I would love to hear from you. Until then, see you next time.